That song was released as a single in 1967, The Summer of Love, written by John Lennon. This song served as Britain's contribution to a program called Our World. Our World was the first live international satellite television program. It was broadcast on June 25th, 1967. The Beatles were there along with Maria Callas and Pablo Picasso and different artists representing 19 nations. They were invited either to perform or to appear in separate segments featuring their respective countries. It was a 2.5-hour show, had the largest television audience ever to that date. It was estimated 400 to 700 million people around the globe were watching. I'm not sure why they couldn't get a little closer on that, but that was the statistic. We got a loud buzz. Is there somebody that can? Oh, okay, thanks. So the Beatles sang All You Need Is Love for the very last song, the close of that broadcast. It was the first time they sang it. And then, of course, it went on to top the charts in Britain and the US, many other countries. But more importantly, it became the countercultural's anthem for this flower power philosophy of theirs. All you need is love. How true is that? You know, music moves and inspires us in so many different ways. I'm sure there's times in your life when a certain song spoke to you or a certain group carried you through a year or two. Mine was John Denver in high school. I was all in love with John Denver and all his songs about nature and those things. But music is it's a call, it's a cry to be heard, it's a way to spread the word, it's a way to change the world, isn't it? It's the very language of love. The poetry from Isaiah that Mary just read, and the cries of John the Baptist, they lend themselves to a focus on the power of music and singing in my mind, because something powerful happens when we raise our voices together, even those who participate by listening. Song is created by breath and by vibrating sound waves, and music literally passes from one body to another, resonating within each person. It's a delightful and wonderful way to celebrate and remember loving joy. Loving joy is Tyree today. But to feel it just running through our very being, as music maybe alone can do. Part of what makes music effective in my mind is its use of repetition and surprise. And for me, the best music combines a balance of those elements, ideas and words and melodies that I'm familiar with, as well as sometimes kind of throwing me with something different and challenging. Somehow I find that satisfying. So I like songs that I know well, but I also like to learn new songs. And then music also often relies on a refrain, that kind of memorable phrase or melody that occurs over and over again, usually at the end of each verse of a song. And it's usually the part of the song that I can't get out of my head. It just plays over and over in my head all week long. They call that, a sound worm or something like that. And my best way of illustrating that is coming home from Disneyland and hearing in my head for weeks, "It's a Small World." If you've been there, you know what I'm saying. It never stops. But music and singing have always been a part of worship. I wonder if you could bring down maybe a monitor, Bruce. Sometimes the monitors cause that. Is that down? Okay. Anyway, music and singing have always been part of worship, which makes sense if it's the language of love. It certainly was an important part of the Methodist movement. Thank you. Charles Wesley, as you know, wrote more than 6,000 songs. And of course, Brother John had a method for singing those songs. So if you look inside the Methodist hymnal that is in front of you, on page VII, little Roman numeral 7, you're going to find John's 7 rules for singing. So here's a few things to keep in mind as we read these directions. First, these hymns that we take for granted as traditional worship, the ones we never want to not sing, were almost all brand new in John Wesley's day. I mean, Charles was writing them as they went along. And most of them would never have been sung in the church. Number one, John Wesley wasn't allowed in the church very often. Woo. This is one of those surprising pieces of music. Amazing Grace wasn't even written yet. And the Methodist movement was happening outside of the church walls, right? John wasn't allowed in churches very often. And if he was, he usually got kicked out before the end of the sermon. But outside the churches where this artful music could be made, and usually only the preacher had a copy of the hymn book anyway with all these cool new songs. And so they would sing out one line at a time, like we've been doing with some of our new series music, and then the gathered people would repeat back, and that's how they learned these hymns. They would just repeat until eventually they had memorized the new song. So Wesley's directions are really rooted in his belief that worship is the work of all of us, right? We all need to participate, and one of the ways that we do that is by singing together. So the truth is that Wesley's directions for singing are meant to be a practical way that we can all take part in worship. So here's his directions for singing. This part of divine worship may be more acceptable to God, as well as more profitable to yourself and others. Be careful to observe the following directions. Number one, learn these tunes before you learn any others. Afterwards, learn as many as you like.
We're doing that English voice.
I'll get that. Number two, sing them exactly as they are printed here without altering or mending them at all. And if you have learned to sing them otherwise, unlearn it as soon as you can. Sing all. See that you join with the congregation as frequently as you can. Let not a slight degree of weakness or weariness hinder you. If it is a cross to you, take it up and let it be a blessing. Sing lustily and with good courage. Beware of singing as if you were half dead or half asleep, but lift up your voice with strength. Be no more afraid of your voice now, nor more ashamed of its being heard, than when you sung the songs of Satan. Sing modestly, do not bawl, so as to be heard above or distinct from the rest of the congregation, that you may not destroy the harmony, but strive to unite your voices together so as to make one clear, melodious sound. Sing in time. Whatever time is sung, be sure to keep with it. Do not run before nor stay behind it, but attend closely to the leading voices, and move therewith as exactly as you can. And take care you sing not too slow. This drawling way naturally steals on all who are lazy, and it is high time to drive it out from among us, and sing all our tunes just as quick as we did at first. Above all, sing spiritually. Have an eye to God in every word you sing. Aim at pleasing Him more than yourself or any other creature. In order to this attend strictly to the sound, in order to this attend strictly to the sense of what you sing, and see that your heart is not carried away with the sound, but offered to God continually. So shall your singing be such as the Lord will approve of here, and reward when He cometh in the clouds of heaven. Thank you, Mr. Wesley. The Bible, like music, contains a lot of elements of repetition and surprise. We read many of the same stories in the four Gospels, with each author giving the story a unique spin for their particular congregation or audience. And of course, there's all kinds of surprises in the Bible. The way God uses the unlikely ones to do His work, the way he favors the poor and loves and heals the ostracized members of society. And of course, the greatest surprise of all, sending his son down here to show us his tremendous love, not by sending him into some cushy, cozy palace with rich and clever people, but by sending him into a poor household with an ordinary family, so that he would understand our struggles and our heartaches, our joys and our challenges. It's truly one big love song. So what are the elements of a love song, you ask? Well, according to Billy Currington, a great love song touches on the basic human need to be needed. Great love songs paint a picture that shows just enough to be enticing but leaves some mystery. Great love songs elevate the person being sung to or about. Great love songs say what the average person wishes they could think of to say, but can't find the words. The greatest love songs cause people to sing them to their partner as if to say, here's how I feel about you, but could never find the words. Great love songs speak from the heart. You feel them. And generally, love songs are simple and believable. They say something deep and meaningful, something that sounds real. The best love songs are honest about real feelings. In Matthew, Mary read about John the Baptist, and in his own peculiar way, he was singing about the radical love of God in Jesus. He calls out in the wilderness, God is here. New life is emerging right here. And again this week, we're reminded by that of our baptism and the waters by which we have life. John's message is hard in some ways. There's a lot of hard stuff in these two passages. And they kind of, in some ways, contradict this week's emphasis on loving joy. But if we imagine the delivery and the medium, this man in the wilderness is crying out for the people and standing with them in the waters of their baptism for the sake of their salvation. We might find this deep, loving joy in understanding the disciples' love for God. In baptism, in song, in nature, we grow in love, we grow toward love. Thanks be to God. So the question is, what will our refrain be this Advent season? What is the melody we want to sing out to the world over and over again? We might each pick a different genre of music or a different style. But if we're singing about this love child come to save us, then our refrain will tell of the genuine, radical, overwhelming, unrelenting, unconditional, joyful love of God. Amen.
Amen.